apocalypse has occurred where you live, and you've got time to grab 5 things to take with you. What are you taking? And just as a quick caveat, we're going to assume you're going to take your people with you, probably your pets.
People and pets are not things in this equation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And guess who came up with this icebreaker?
This guy.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good icebreaker. It's a good idea. So it's an apocalypse, so definitely I want my phone. I know that phones probably won't be working, but just in case somebody else has their phone on, I'm taking it with me, and a place for me to make notes about everything that's going on and take pictures, so that when I get out of the apocalypse, I can say, I survived COVID-19. This is what it looked like. And here are all the masks that I wore. So so I would take my phone, I would take my mask, I guess. And then I would take a 6-pack of Diet Cherry Dr. Pepper, because if I'm going to be in a really bad place, I at least want some Diet Dr. Pepper. And then in order of importance, I bring my wife with me, and my dog Ziva, who would protect us. Maybe not, but I don't know. So far, that's some of the ones that I would bring. Maybe keys to my motorcycle, so I'm not worried, because it gets better gas mileage, and so in an apocalypse there wouldn't be as much. I'm just thinking out loud here.
I think you need the motorcycle, not just the keys.
Yeah, I would need the key and the motorcycle. Good point. I've got my keys. Well, do you have your motorcycle? No. That's a good point. Way to go. I like that.
Well, I heard this question and I thought, well, I don't own any guns, but I feel like if it's a zombie apocalypse, you need some sort of weapon. So I'd bring a baseball bat.
All right.
And then I would bring something to trade for a gun. So like whiskey. Or if I was hanging out with Scott, Diet Dr. Pepper.
Cherry
Dr. Pepper. But I think a vehicle, a phone, those are good ideas. I probably wouldn't be long for this world in a zombie apocalypse. I would just hole up somewhere. I was thinking like maybe a welding torch to make a fence. Like how do you keep them out?
Wow. Okay.
That's where I was at, because I'm clearly not going to fight and win. Unless like there's a question now. We have an 11-year-old, so I've had far more conversations about zombies than I would ever want to. But then I also had the question, are these the fast zombies or the slow zombies? Like, can you outrun this zombie? Because there are 2 different kinds of zombies.
Well,
because
can you kill a zombie? I mean, can you kill zombies? If you shoot them, are they going to die? I thought they just blew holes right through them and they just kept on coming.
It's a headshot that kills them.
That's a whole different
general
podcast.
lore. Yeah, right. Now we're zombie apocalypse podcast.
I wish I couldn't answer that question, but let me tell you an essay about it, because I'm an 11-year-old.
Yeah, right.
How about you? What would you bring?
All right, so I would bring my big carbon steel frying pan. Because you can cook stuff in it, right, over an open fire, no problem. Very a tough pan, but then also you can use it as a shield and a weapon. So I would that would be my first item. Then of course my classic AeroPress coffee maker.
I like this. Yeah.
Can you really do an apocalypse without coffee? I don't know, man. I mean, not really feeling
not
that.
Happily.
Right? Not for sure.
Apocalypse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is an apocalypse, but I mean, still, you should at least still have coffee.
I like how you've turned this zombie apocalypse question into like a cooking humble brag. Like, I got this special pan. I've got this special way to make coffee.
Right.
And we can saute it in whatever you're cooking in Diet Dr. Pepper.
Little pork loin. cherry taste. All right.
Yeah. I would also bring a bottle of whiskey, because again, it is an apocalypse. And we don't have any weapons, but I would bring a computer, whatever computer I could reach, because we have like 5 within reach right
We have so many computers that they could be the weapons.
They could, yeah.
That's right. Your phone. That's your phone, your computer.
Yeah, right.
Answering all those emails from other people out who are going through the apocalypse. Yeah.
In case they need to book a speaker.
Yeah.
Let me talk to your
you need a
survivors.
Right? Book us for your zombie apocalypse event.
All right. Well.
All right. So I think, did I get through on my 5? I think that's close enough.
That's enough.
All right. So to our listeners, welcome to the Kimberly and Co Show, where we bring you actionable practices that you can use in your leadership and collaboration. Today, I'm Coach Kimberly's right next to me. With us today is the change energizer himself, Scott Carley. And for those of you who are meeting Scott Carley for the first time, he is a sought-after professional speaker of the highest caliber, a coach, a workshop and retreat leader. Scott, hang out. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today.
Hey, man, it's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
So, Scott, we started to get to know you through a weekly event here in Austin called the Metropolitan Breakfast Club.
NBC!
NBC, if you're cool. And we thought our listeners might really benefit from your expertise and wisdom. So can you give us a rundown of what you're doing now to help business leaders around town and around the world?
You bet. I love helping success-driven entrepreneurs who have a big, scary, audacious dream or goal that they're trying to push across the finish line. And most of the time, they're either at a fork in the road or they're stuck, and they just don't know what to do. And those are great people to work with, because what I do as a change energizer is we brainstorm together, and I help them figure out really what that big, scary, audacious goal is and put it on paper. And then we embrace the obstacles. And the obstacles are the first things that pop up. And that's what's keeping people from, having the success that they want to have. It's the obstacles. So whether it's a business owner who is trying to, push into a new market or expand something, or whether it's an individual who wants to be in that $1 million sales circle, whoever it is, that's who I like to work with.
Right on, right on. So with these obstacles, business leaders, as they're facing things with their teams, obviously, as business leaders are looking to achieve goals and objectives, hit the initiatives that they are trying to push across that finish line, as you said, what's a few things that business leaders can do to lead their teams through obstacles as they come up?
Yeah, I love to answer that question. So the number one complaint of employees is unclear job responsibility. I was hired to do one thing, but then they asked me to do another thing. And, over the last several months or years, I just turned into a lot of different things, and I'm not exactly sure what I'm supposed to be doing. So I just kind of, I'd stab at a few things. In comparison with that, the number one complaint of employers, my employees aren't doing what I think they should. And so what happens is there's a misfire. Employees aren't really clear about what their priorities are, what their income producing activities are. And employers are saying, I hired them to do one thing, but they're doing all this other stuff. I need them to refocus. And so that's part of what I do. I come in and we establish what are your primary, secondary, and admin responsibilities for your role. What is your role and your top 2 priorities? And I want to tell you, we even did that this past week with a group that I went up to in Dallas. And the lights just start coming on, clarity starts happening. And when that takes place, then they start focusing on what I call income producing activities. And when you focus on income producing activities or your priorities about what moves the project down the line and makes things happen, everybody becomes a happy camper.
So once you've figured out what you're focused on and what your priorities are, and you're going along and you hit that obstacle that is in the way of your big audacious goal, what are some things that you can do to, I think you use the phrase embrace the obstacle.
Yeah.
Instead of avoid the obstacle. So what are some things that people could bring into their practice today when they hit an obstacle that's overwhelming?
Yeah, that's sometimes we avoid the obstacles and we just sort of pretend that they're not there. And no, I don't want to hear about that. Nah, and
I resemble this remark.
Like, oh, guilty. Yes.
That's a wrong thing to do. It's so much better to embrace the obstacle and then deal with it. And I personally like to do that in a mastermind or in group discussion, because 2 heads are better than 1, 3 or 4 heads are better than 1. One of the ways to make that happen, something that I recommend for all business owners, is that every Monday morning you have a huddle. And in that huddle, every person on your team or the key leaders, depending on what the level is, executive team and then mid-management, whatever, but bring them together. And every person, just real quickly, says, what are your top 5 priorities and your top 2 issues? And when a team comes together every Monday and says, for this week, I'm in sales, my top 5 priorities are this, and my top 2 issues are this. I'm in manufacturing, my top 5 priorities are this, my top 2 issues are this. And so when you hear those, then immediately you can say, okay, well, tell me about that other issue. Oh, it's a supply chain issue. We get all of our parts for our furniture, out of South Carolina or North Carolina, because that's where a lot of that is manufactured. But because of the supply chain problems, and on the West Coast, we can't get stuff in from China or wherever it's coming from. Man, I've got to find a new place to order stuff. And so that's a real genuine issue that's holding things up. You can't make things happen. And so then it's time to embrace the issue and say, okay, well, is North Carolina the only place where we can order furniture? Is there another place? Well, let's investigate. Well, yeah, there's some places we've never tried before. We don't really know about them. Okay, well, let's get to know them and let's do our research and see if we can start getting them there. And actually, that's exactly what happened to a client up in Ohio. They build these large buildings and then they furnish them, do all the wallpaper and all the furniture and all of that. And the person I was directly connected with was one who was ordering all of that furniture and products and couldn't get it. And so they had to find a new source. Well, that's what I call embracing the obstacle instead of just pretending it's not there and having to say again and again, yeah, everything's on back order. Yeah, everything, we don't know where it's going to be.
Sure. Yeah, something that makes me think about is I think a lot of times, especially in the entrepreneurial space, you're wearing all the hats. So when you hit an obstacle, it's really easy to stay busy without actually moving the ball forward. It's easy to be busy but not productive. And
Yeah.
so I love that you're saying, okay, you've hit the obstacle, name it. And then I love the practice of bringing it into a communal space. So you have more heads in the conversation and saying, okay, here's the obstacle. How can we solve this obstacle and move that forward? Because I think we trick ourselves sometimes when we're avoidant of a problem into thinking that we're doing a lot of work, but we're not actually moving forward.
I'm also,
there was
and I don't like it.
Yeah. One of our coaches recently told us cleaning your office is not a money-making activity. And I was like, oh man, we did that last week. Yeah. And I mean, you have to clean your office sometimes eventually, but being sure of like, this is what the priority is. This is what's going to produce income. Here's where we're stuck.
Yeah, there are 2 phrases. There are 2 phrases that 2 different people left with me over the last 15 or 20 years that I've never forgotten. One is called the barrenness of busyness. And you're busy, but you're barren. You're not producing anything. You're busy. You're moving papers around and shuffling things around. And well, you've got a lot of activity. You're going here and you're going there. But have you closed any deals? Have you made anything happen? And that brings up the second phrase is, did you move the needle? If you didn't move the needle, then nothing happened. And it's when the needle moves that we make money or products go out the door. So that's exactly right. I'm right there with you, Kimberly. You do have to take action.
Yeah. Right on. So, Scott, as we bring today's conversation in for a landing, how can our listeners engage with you and your work?
Well, there's a few ways that they can do that. One of the things that I love to start with is I want to hear about your big, scary, audacious dreams. And really, that's the first place to start. And that can be done by booking a call with me. There's no charge for that call, but it's, if you go to calltheenergizer.com, then let's have that conversation. And if, once we have that conversation about hearing your big, scary, audacious dreams, and if you're stuck or if you're trying to figure them out or you're at a fork at the road, then we can have that discussion and figure out if I'm the person you need to work with or if now is a good time to work with me. And usually when that happens, I plug people into a 3-day retreat that I do. I do it once a quarter, and it's called We Did It Weekend. And it's about helping people figure out what you need to do to push those big achievements across the finish line. And that retreat it's called a breakthrough retreat because it's more than an aha. You really punch through some of those deep-seated barriers that are keeping you from where you want to go. And of course, all of that really ends up in a 1-year mastery program where you get me on a weekly basis, and I can help you stay motivated and stay focused and accountable for where you need to go and what you need to do. So that's pretty much how it works. Now, I do keynotes. I do luncheon presentations. If you need a speaker, I'm the guy. I was a 2-term president for the National Speakers Association. So speaking, retreats, coaching, that's how people work with me.
Yeah, and I can just vouch for it. We get to hang out with you on a lot of Wednesday mornings, really, really early. And so some of the room is very bleary-eyed at that time, including sometimes me. But one of the reasons you're on our podcast is I was like, Ben, we've got to have this guy Scott on our podcast because you have this great energy. You really do energize a room. So I could definitely speak for that.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Metropolitan Breakfast Club is full of a lot of great people who made a big commitment to be there at 7:00 on a Wednesday morning. Oh my God, those are the kind of people I like to work with. Right. Who are committed to doing something early in the morning and saying, "Hey, let's do this."
Yeah. So, I don't always love the alarm clock, but then I'm always glad that I
went.
Me too.
Scott, thank you so much for hanging out with us. This has been awesome. And to you, our dear listener, thanks for tuning in to the Kimberly Coach Show, where we endorse visiting your local rock climbing gym for both inspiration and perspiration. We'll see you next time.
Cheers. I love every time I get to talk to Scott.
I know, right?
Yeah, he is so much fun to be around. So I'm glad that we got to hang out with you guys.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I think I forgot to mention this. He is always, like, if not the most, but one of the most sharpest dressed men in the Metropolitan Breakfast Club.
That's true. That's true.
I want to see if I can hire him to go shopping with me.
Your personal style.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that was on his list of.
It was not on his list. I think
Scott,
maybe
we're
it should.
looking at you.
This is my nicest shirt. I just want you guys to know. I wore my nicest shirt for this one. It's true. It's especially during the pandemic. Like a lot of my shirts are just whatever, man. So anyway, let's talk about.
So, what stood out for you from our podcast in terms of leadership and satisfaction?
Right. So here's the thing. I love Scott's simplicity.
Yeah.
You know what? In today's day and age, in leadership, it seems like we always want to hide behind this level of complexity that I don't think is really that necessary. It's like, hey, look at me, I'm sounding smart. I'm like, cool story, bro. Mm-hmm. But you know what? Scott's title of his retreat is called "We Did It." That's it. You know?
Yeah,
And
I do think some consultants, they kind of build their brand on complexity
They
because
do.
they're like, you need
Mhm.
me because it's too hard to do on your own.
Right. This is just
And
too
then
hard.
I think Scott is more like, let's roll up our sleeves. Let's do this together.
Yeah.
We've got this. We're
Mhm.
gonna break it down.
So I think like Scott's his approach to simplicity, to clarity, I think is something that as leaders we need to, in all of the corporate buzz speak, in all of the weird ways that we talk about things in corporate spaces, business space. Let's, I want to follow Scott's example. Let's see if we can keep that simple, and break it down. That's my big takeaway.
Yeah, and I think even just what he talked about with simplifying the people on your team, what is your priority? What takes like the top spot? I think that by itself, that simplifying piece.
Yeah.
Because we all have 100 tasks that we're juggling at work, but do we know what takes our top 2 spaces,
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just add, I really liked in terms of how do you tackle an obstacle? I'm a person who absolutely will try to do the easiest things first when I see an obstacle. And I think there's a space for that. But sometimes we're literally trying to not look at the thing that is kind of the obstacle in our path. And just the fact of naming it in community can be so helpful to say, here's the main issue that's stopping me from being able to move the needle on this. And then to bring that into a communal intelligence space, because other people are going to see this problem differently than you do.
Yeah.
And their perspective might be the key to solving it and getting over that hurdle. And so I just really love that as a practice. So I think if you're listening to this today and you're thinking about your job, where is the obstacle in your path? And have you invited any other brains into that conversation? Just to say, like, here's what I'm facing, here's the issue. What do you see that I might not see? I think that is a practice that we could all do more.
Yep, agreed. It's like in IT, anytime something's going wrong, you just need to grab another technician, have them look at it with you. And sometimes it just resolves itself. It's amazing.
That's the story of my life, being married to Ben. I'm like, babe, this computer is not working. And then he will just walk next to it.
Then you go stand by it.
And then it will like do its thing and go, ding,
Yeah, I call it the quantum field effect. It's like, do we know how it works? No, we know it works. It's good. Anyway, so once again, dear listener, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out with us. As always, you can always come over and visit us over at KimberlyCoach.com. And we'll see you next time.
Cheers.